Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's the fifth day of our 5-day morning extravaganza here, a little thing we call O'Connor and Company, but you'd like to call it America's favorite morning show. Thanks for tuning in here as we finish up your week strong and then send you into that weekend the way you want. Informed, entertained, enlightened, hopefully with a smile on your face. Coming up at 6:35, Caroline Glick on Chuck Schumer and the Democrat Party here in America throwing our greatest ally, Israel, under the bus. 7:05, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin on the fights he's got with Democrats in Richmond. I might ask him his opinion about where things are going on in Israel as well. 7:35, lawyer for Riley Gaines, a group of athletes suing the NCAA over their transgender anti-woman policies. 8:15, Ian Pryor, latest out of Loudoun County. And then at 8:35, Brett Baer, Fox News Channel. I'm Larry O'Connor. Hey, it's Patrice Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice.
Good morning. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. I appreciate the green today. You're wearing green for St. Patrick's Day, which is technically Sunday. As an Irishman, I'm not obliged to wear green at all.
You're not?
No, because the green is in my blood, you see.
You do know that I have Irish heritage, too?
Of course. No, I had no idea.
Believe it or not. Well,
is there an apostrophe? Is it Onwuka? Is there like an apostrophe?
It's really Lee. Lee.
Oh, that's right. Your maiden name is Lee. Lee is a very Irish name. Well, there you go. All right.
Yeah.
Did you know that I actually have some Jewish blood in me?
Interesting.
My mother's father was Jewish. And so I'm actually ethnically, funny thing about being Jewish, you're either, it's an ethnicity as well as a religion. I was not raised in the faith, but I was raised with the, influenced by the culture and the ethnicity because of my grandfather.
Yes.
But you don't have to be Jewish to stand by the great people of the state of Israel.
Yes.
Honestly, because first of all, literally they are the most important strategic ally the United States has. So just on a geopolitical basis, if you don't care about the history of that region or what the great people of Israel stand for and their beautiful faith and the phenomenal resilience they've had to create this incredible nation out of a lump of sand that no one else could do anything with, and they've created this, incredible country through resilience, through hard work, and I think through the grace of God. If you put all of that aside and just look at it cold and analytically, the United States needs a great ally in the Middle East. There was a time when they were the only ally that we had in the Middle East. That's kind of an important region in the country. And yesterday, Chuck Schumer, the leader of the Democrats in the United States Senate, one of the most important voices for the Democratic Party in the United States of America, sent a message worldwide that as far as the Democratic Party was concerned, Israel was no longer important to us. Israel can go pound sand. In fact, Chuck Schumer, through this speech that I'm about to share with you, basically, on behalf of the Democrats, took sides in the conflict. He sided with the terrorists.
As a lifelong supporter of Israel, it has become clear to me the Netanyahu coalition no longer fits the needs of Israel after October 7th. The world has changed radically since then, and the Israeli people are being stifled right now by a governing vision that is stuck in the past. Nobody expects Prime Minister Netanyahu to do the things that must be done to break the cycle of violence, to preserve Israel's credibility on the world stage, and to work towards a two-state solution. If he were to disavow Ministers Smotrich and Ben-Gvir and kick them out of his governing coalition, that would be a real meaningful step forward. But regrettably, there's no reason to believe Prime Minister Netanyahu would do that. He won't disavow Ministers Smotrich and Ben-Gvir in their calls for Israelis to drive Palestinians out of Gaza and the West Bank. He won't commit to a military operation in Rafah that prioritizes protecting civilian life. He won't engage responsibly in discussions about a day-after plan for Gaza and a longer-term pathway to peace.
All right, listen, I have a lot to say about this, Patrice, and I want to get it off my chest throughout the rest of this half hour, but let me just start by saying that it is despicable to me that in the wake of the events of October 7th, the first time Chuck Schumer decides to stick his head up there and say something and call for a change in leadership in that region, it's not to demand that Hamas step down from leadership for the people of Gaza. It's not to demand that Hamas be removed from any kind of position of authority for the people of Gaza and the Gaza Strip. No. He looks at the situation and decides the problem is the duly elected prime minister of Israel, the actual functioning democracy there, who is defending his people, while Americans are still being held hostage, by the way.
Yes, that's
and
right.
and just recently there was a vote 90-9 in the Knesset supporting Benjamin Netanyahu, supporting what he's doing there. Chuck Schumer in his wildest dream could never get that kind of support in his own legislative body. This was a disgusting, despicable thing that he did, and in fact, even the White House distanced themselves from it. But that's the game they play. But I've got more to say, but I'll just go ahead and let you in here because this is I cannot believe I've lived to see this day.
So what was on display yesterday were public theatrics, and you're seeing this dance being played by the left because they need to appease the far left Hamas-supporting radicals in the Democratic Party right now. But bigger picture, Schumer started out with his speech referring to what his last name is translated in Hebrew, which is guardian. And so he's speaking as the guardian of Jews across in the United States and I guess across the world. And he lambasted Netanyahu in his remarks yesterday, who frankly right now is an easy target because everybody is going after him. But you know what? When you
Not
are
the people of Israel.
Well, not the people of Israel, but everyone Schumer referred to the international community, why he's right now turning Israel into a pariah of the international community. You know what? When you are the leader and you are protecting your people who had been viciously attacked, and now you're trying to go after the bad guys, sometimes you're going to break some eggs, and in the process, you're going to pick up a lot of enemies. Yeah. And it's sad that the United States is now siding with the enemy camp against Israel, when Israel and frankly every other nation never sided against us when we were going after the terrorists who attacked the United States on September 11th. Mm-hmm. But Schumer's speech, it's a speech. It's supposed to signal to the voters in Michigan, the Muslim voters in Michigan who seem to want to sit out the election or want to do a no confidence vote against Biden and Democrats during the the next election. That no, we see you, we hear you, we've got your back. Young people who are bought and sold because of TikTok videos about this Hamas being the genocide against in Gaza being because of Israel. Oh no, we see you, and that's what this is all about. And it's sad, it's disgusting.
It is. I'm going to expand on that thought because you're absolutely honing in on exactly what's going on here, and there's more to say about it. It is grotesque. And you use the term the good guys and the bad guys, and your intellectual types in Washington D.C. Well, it's a much more complex issue. No, it's not. No, it's not. Not after October 7th. It's actually quite simple. There are good guys in this, and there are bad guys in this, and I assure you, the bad guys are the ones who were slaughtering people on October 7th and are still held hostage and still being raped and still being terrorized by the bad guys. It is that simple, and there's more to say about this. There's more to say about the Democrats, and time for the Republicans to step up here, and it looked like they did.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Later this morning on the Chris Plante Show, Joe Biden's White House is a pound me too nightmare. Sexual harassment, bullying, 9 a.m. on WMAL.
It is grotesque and hypocritical for Americans who hyperventilate about foreign interference in our own democracy to call for the removal of a democratically elected leader of Israel. This is unprecedented. We should not treat fellow democracies this way at all.
That's right. That's Mitch McConnell yesterday rebuking Chuck Schumer. And to that, listen to this, Patrice. This may be the most stunning thing of all yesterday. To that statement, Mark Levin, Mark Levin took to the X.com social media platform and said of Mitch McConnell, and I quote, "McConnell deserves all the credit in the world here." That's right, I said it. I mean, you don't hear a lot of praise from Mark Levin for Mitch McConnell.
Right.
I texted the great one with that quote back to him, and he replied, "For now." McConnell gets credit for now, but it's true. It's true. But you know what? You're right. He doesn't. What credit do you deserve for doing the obvious right thing? Chuck Schumer calling and demanding a two-state solution here, a two-state solution to the trouble in the Middle East and the contention that the so-called Palestinians deserve their own state, which they've never had in the history of the world. Right. And that state, of course, needs to be carved out of the territory that Israel now controls. That would be the greatest reward that that Hamas and Iran and all of the other terrorists in that area would have. Why on earth would you reward the people for slaughtering innocent people? Basically, you're acquiescent, saying, okay, we hear you on October 7th, so here's your two-party solution or two-state solution. It's absolutely, completely morally bankrupt. But Patrice, you hit on it. You hit on exactly why this is happening. You mentioned Michigan. This is all about Michigan. You know, the majority of American Jews, Patrice, live in either New York, California, or Florida. These are three states that are basically predetermined for 2024 and really for the not-too-distant future, foreseeable future. Michigan is very much a toss-up state. It is up for grabs, and it has a large, growing Arab Muslim population. Democrat leaders don't care about Israel. They've never really cared about Israel. Only so far as American Jews helped them politically in the past and for fundraising purposes.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And Florida. I mean, but when Florida was a toss-up state, they would make noise about Israel and but now Biden's words, Biden's actions, Schumer's speech here, it's the end. It's the end of Democrats pretending to care about Jews.
Yeah.
Math, you can have opinions about things, but math doesn't lie. You're not allowed to have an opinion about math. And Michigan's electoral votes matter more than Harry Truman's legacy being one of the most heroic things he did was to be the first world leader to recognize Israel. That is something that the Democratic Party should be celebrating, but they're ashamed of it now. Math and Michigan's electoral votes matters more than moral clarity, matters more than loyalty, matters more than America's strategic needs in the region. Michigan's electoral votes represent an existential threat to Democrats keeping their power, and that is all that matters. It's time for Jewish Americans to come home where they belong. It's time for them to recognize exactly what the Democrats are.
Well, and I do hope that they are. I do hope that they recognize that for many of their interests, but most importantly, their existential interests, that liberals and the left have left them behind and have exposed their own anti-Semitism, and it is generational. It passed down to the youngest generations right now, and they need to pay attention to that. Just to pull on a thread, though, that you talked about before shifting to American politics. The idea of rewarding these terrorists by giving them a carved-out nation, I think is really important from a historical perspective, Larry. Because let's not forget, nation building changed substantially over the past, I would say, maybe 200 years or so. At one time, what the Hamas terrorists did is actually how you created your own nation state. You went into a territory, you decimated the population, you raped and brutalized the people, and you subjugated them, and you took over the land.
Yeah, the people at that time, I think they were referred to as barbarians.
They were, but that is how we might call them nations today, but that is how people groups colonize different countries or different lands, and it went back and forth for millennia. When you look at any sort of throughout history, that is how nations were formed. And then we kind of figured out, okay, actually, that's the barbaric way is not the way we want to continue to do this.
Wow.
We now have a world system, an order that has been shattered because of what Hamas did. And so then to reward them, as you rightly said, with their own nation state, which, by the way, they have rejected a two-state agreement time and time again that Israel has offered. But to reward them with their own land because of this is how you're going to start to change world dynamics, geopolitics, and dynamics.
You are correct. They were given 99% of what they demanded in the 90s because Bill Clinton was willing to sell Israel out. Yasser Arafat, the founder of the Palestinian, the PLO, the terrorist group, and then what became the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, he rejected it out of hand. By the way, his successor, Mahmoud Abbas, he is currently celebrating the 20th anniversary of his 4-year term. So that tells you how much they love democracy and one person, one vote. You're 100% right. But I will say this. After October 7th, since since Hamas and the people of Gaza that supports Hamas, the Palestinians who celebrate them, if this is how they want nation states to be built back in the good old barbarian days, as you just rightly historically described, then I think Israel is only obliged to play that game. And so now they have to go in and they have to take that territory. It's 5:23. All right, coming up, Riley Gaines and a group of other female athletes announced they are suing the NCAA over their transgender athlete policies. This is the next step in finally getting this policy erased and restoring women back in their spaces, in their locker rooms, on their athletic teams, and finally getting the NCAA to step down from this disastrous policy. We'll give you all the details coming up next.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:36. You're listening to O'Connor and Company on this Friday morning. Thanks for joining us. Coming up at 6:35, Caroline Glick. She's in Israel, and she's going to comment on Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. 7:05, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin will be here. 7:35, William Block, lawyer for Riley Gaines. We're going to give you the details of that story in just a sec. 8:15, Ian Pryor out of Loudoun County. Talk about the school board there, stamping down on truth and transparency. Can't have that. That would send the wrong message to the kids. And at 8:35, Brett Baer, Fox News Channel. I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Patrice Onwuka.
Good morning. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday indeed. And your colleague at Independent Women's Forum, Riley Gaines. Have you noticed that Riley Gaines' star really started to rise as soon as she inked with Independent Women's Forum?
Well,
she did an appearance or
gave her a big
two.
platform to amplify her message because
That's
no
right.
one else was really giving her that platform.
I know.
It's beautiful to see now.
IWF comes in there, says, hey, we want to help, boost your image.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, she's doing a segment on WMAL's O'Connor and Company, and then everything takes off.
There you go. There you go.
She, along with 15 other collegiate athletes, announced yesterday that they are suing the NCAA. That's the governing body over collegiate sports. These other athletes all lost out on either titles or records or roster spots to men posing as women. And I'm told, by the way, that, this Leah Thomas thing, it was a one-off. It was just an individual moment, but it's not the norm. Well, okay, here's 16 women. 16 women who can say to the NCAA, your policy, which is not rooted in science, it's not rooted in logic, it's not rooted certainly in law, considering Title IX is meant to literally protect and carve out women's sports separate from men's athletics. Your policy, you have violated it, you have violated the law, and we're suing you. And that's honestly, that's the only way you get anything done these days, sadly, in America, and this is a great thing. It's an absolutely great thing. As Riley Gaines said in announcing this, the NCAA continues to explicitly violate federal civil rights law of Title IX, and it's about time someone did something about it. And they've actually tried. Listen, they went to the NCAA meetings down in Phoenix. They've tried to have a meeting with the president of the NCAA.
Yeah.
They've been ignored. Also named in the suit, University System of Georgia, Georgia Tech University, University of Georgia, University of North Georgia and the Board of Regents of the University System of Georgia. This is a great development, and we can't wait to talk to that attorney. Again, William Block is joining us at 7:35.
So we have found what you call systemic sexism. If there ever was a term, it is the treatment of women sports, and frankly, women in so many sectors of society who are now discriminated against based on sex and their opportunities being given to biological men and their safety being placed on the chopping block just to support this idea of inclusion. So this lawsuit is hugely important. You know, folks can, I'm just going to put a shameless plug out there, go to IWF.org. At the very top of our website, you will see more about this lawsuit and the work that we've been doing with Riley and with so many of the other ambassadors, Paula Scanlon and others, really drawing attention. You know, Larry, I will tell you, I remember probably 5 or 6 years ago, I was on a television show doing a roundtable with the delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton and a former Democratic congressional congresswoman here in Maryland who's now out of her seat. But I was raising this issue because IWF had flagged this as an issue that was rising. We were starting to hear stories about women who were being discriminated against by biological men by having them play against them in sports, and how this could open the door for injuries. It could create unsafe spaces for them and remove their opportunities and their opportunities for, you know, college awards, scholarships, etc.
Sure.
And, you know, they laughed in my face. They said, "Oh, this is not a big deal, and you're talking about discrimination against any discrimination against anyone is wrong, and just let these trans players play." And I said, "No. How can you stand up for Title IX, which was created to ensure that women can have equal access and equal opportunity to play in sports just like men?" That's what Title IX was about.
That simple.
We are defending Title IX, and you are literally, you and those in the Democratic Party are trying to destroy it single-handedly. Now, fast forward to now, you've got the Biden administration trying to undercut Title IX, and so this is why we have this is why you have this lawsuit on behalf of Riley and others, and this is why you also have efforts, you know, to enshrine in the law the sex-based discrimination, sex-based distinction between men and women.
Yeah.
It was common sense before, but now we actually have to put it in the law and clarify it so that you don't have this kind of assault, Larry, on women, on women's sports, on women's opportunity, on women's spaces.
Absolutely. Well said. And listen, they weren't wrong when they said discrimination is wrong, and certainly is legally. Certain types of discrimination is just prohibited, just outright in the law. The problem is they don't realize in looking at this story that the discrimination is against women here.
Exactly.
That's the discrimination. Yes. And so listen, I hope that this whole thing, that there's only 2 resolutions. The NCAA settles and they throw out their policy, which would be the smartest thing for them to do, or they double down on their woke ideology that is not rooted in any sort of facts, not rooted in any science or logic, and is also discriminatory, mean-spirited, and hurtful, and endangers women. If that's what they want to do, they're going to lose. We are on the right side of this issue.
Yes.
All it took was people to start fighting it. And I also want to point out one thing. Senator Mike Lee put out a really interesting little tidbit here. Recently, the U.S. Senate put out an 18-page letter. Actually, they put out a letter to the NCAA asking certain questions that they wanted to know about this policy. And the NCAA returned 18 pages of answers to them. One of the questions from Senator Lee was this: has the NCAA assessed the physical, emotional, psychological harm of its transgender inclusion policy on female athletes? If so, what are the findings? If not, why not? Really important. Really important thing, because any major institution, especially one like the NCAA, and one that is supposed to be representative of students and athletes and is supposed to be sort of in the public interest, if they make a major change of a policy like this that affects so many people, you always do a study, right? You always, what are the ramifications of this? What will be the domino effect? Who's going to be harmed by this, if at all? Let's make sure that we're not hurting anyone before we make this change. The answer from the NCAA's president, President Baker, the answer is the NCAA has not conducted any research related to the current transgender policy. They just decided. A handful of woke people in a boardroom said, let's just do this.
It's purely ideological because actually, if they looked at the numerous studies that are out there, and we actually put together a competition report that lays out a lot of this, but if you look at the biological, the physiological differences, the evidence supports our side, which is that yes, there are distinctions between men and women physically, and that when you put men and women in these competing against each other, you are very likely to have injuries, and the injuries have been grotesque. I mean, what was it, about a month ago, where you saw a basketball player, 6'4", biological male, competing against these females, and were injuring the girls to the point where the school had to cut the game and pull their girls out so that they wouldn't be hurt. I mean, this is happening.
It is happening. But here's the thing, NCAA, you don't actually even have to do a study or research or scientific discovery to just know logically with the brain that God gave you, that if you bring in a biologically intact 6'4" naked man into the women's locker room with teenage girls, it's going to have an impact on them. You moral idiots. And then there's the story of Benedict. Now, of course, we've told you this story of this young teenage girl who tragically died after a fight occurred at her school, right? This is a gender non-binary identifying 16-year-old who was born a girl and went by the name of Benedict. She, it turns out, got into this fight that she admitted she initiated. She went into a bathroom. Girls were being mean to her. She took a water bottle and she dumped the water on them. That turned into a fight. A teacher came in after hearing the ruckus, brought her out, sent her home. She went to the hospital. There is police camera of her at the hospital. She's talking. She tells her story. She has some injuries, but she doesn't look, beat up the way that everyone told us that she was going to be beat up. She then died the next day, and this legend was created that she was killed by bullies over transgender policy.
Yeah, that's
and it
a
was,
lie.
And it was a lie. It was a complete and total lie. We knew about 2 weeks ago that the medical examiner said she did not die as a result of trauma, and now we have the toxicology results, as I believe, shared yesterday, that it was an overdose. It was an overdose, and it's tragic. It's horrible. God, I literally cried for her parents when I heard this. Imagine your daughter committing suicide. She died of an overdose of Prozac, by the way, which is a drug that was routinely prescribed to young people who are going through gender dysphoria syndromes, which I think needs to be examined because why, if this is completely natural and normal and biological, then why on earth would you need to prescribe Prozac to somebody?
Obviously, there are mental issues that are aside from just the gender dysphoria, or maybe driving it. Who knows?
Also, I guarantee you that her mother was told that her daughter would commit suicide if she didn't go along with the gender transition. And so the mother did go along with the gender transition, and yet here we have a suicide. So maybe the two aren't related directly. And then, but we know for a fact, yes, there was a fight. There is no evidence to suggest that the fight had anything to do with her identification as gender non-binary, by the way.
From what I read, they were just making fun of how she's talking. I'm not, advocating for making fun of how people talk.
And she said in the police report, when she talked to the cops, she said that they made fun of her the way she dressed. But she didn't say specifically because I dress like a boy, because guess what? She didn't dress like a boy. Not in the video that I saw. She was wearing clothes that a girl would wear too, pants and a T-shirt. That's not specific to a boy. All right. Yesterday, so we know all that. I just delivered all of the facts to you about this. Everything that we know that's on the record that is official police information. Yesterday, the President of the United States on White House stationery put out a statement about this girl's death, Benedict. Joe and I are heartbroken by the recent loss of Benedict. Every young person deserves to have the fundamental right and freedom to be who they are and feel safe and supported at school and in their communities. Benedict, a kid who just wanted to be accepted, should still be here with us today. He is putting out a statement here suggesting that this person is dead because she was bullied and she wasn't accepted by the school.
That's so wrong. That is manipulation of a story. But it's not surprising. Now, what I find most surprising, I haven't seen yet a statement on Lake and Riley coming out of President Biden or from the White House.
Yeah.
At best, a White House spokesperson dropped a little note to Jackie Heinrich, or maybe Jackie Heinrich tweeted it.
Yeah.
Oh, we'd like to extend our deepest condolences to the family and loved ones of Laken. People should be held accountable if they are found to be guilty.
Right. That's it.
And we're giving this an active case and refer you to state law. I mean, you see, this is, unfortunately, people, this is what happens when you have a cold, uncaring administration who only cares about stories and tragedies that advance their narrative. But I thought President Biden was supposed to be the president for all Americans.
Right. All the unity, all the healing.
All the healing. So whether your child commits suicide or whether they're killed by an illegal alien, I would think that both sets of parents should be getting at least the same kind of concern and empathy and sympathy from the president. But that's not the case.
No, because the LGBTQIA plus community is an important voting bloc and, even more importantly, a huge fundraising mechanism for Joe Biden and the Democrats. And that's all that matters, as we just saw depicted with Chuck Schumer and Israel, number one. And number two, there's no constituency for the parents of a 22-year-old nursing student. Come on, that's not a voting bloc. No, what we care about is illegal immigrants. That, again, gets us votes and gets us money. It's disgusting. It's cynical. And this is the man who was elected president as the consoler-in-chief. He's always been this man, and I'm just happy that he's revealing it now. This statement from the White House divides, doesn't unify. And it divides because it's based on a lie. But, you know, that's also who Joe Biden is, an out-and-out liar. Always has been. 553.